All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to part 7 of our Tuesday night healing. We've been doing this for about a month and a half now. I'm really excited that, we've gone this long with it. I'm just giving it a second for everybody to start joining in, for Stormy to kick on. I hope everybody's week. So, while everyone is getting on, tonight we're going to be talking about co-parenting. And, we came up with this topic because, most people decide that, or they have this issue in their life and stuff. So, it's always a good thing, I guess, to talk about, get different perspectives and stuff on the actual subject itself. So, with that being said, we're going to dive right into it. Stormy will join us, I guess, whenever she's ready. So, co-parenting. What is it? So, people split up and they're no longer together, couples and such. And when they're no longer together and they have a child together, they have to co-parent. Now, what's the definition, technically, of co-parenting? Well, the simplest definition is it's an arrangement where both parents work together and share the responsibilities of raising their child or children. And even though they're no longer married or in a romantic relationship, they work together to obviously achieve a goal of raising the child separate but together. So, with that being said, there's actually 3 different types of co-parenting. So we'll go over the types and I'll dive into the definitions of it as well. So parallel co-parenting is the first one. And you also have conflicted. I mean, in most situations, I feel like you can't achieve this, but maybe that's just my situation. So parallel co-parenting. Basically what that is it's the most common form where parents don't argue, but they also don't communicate with each other. They operate their own households independently, and this approach may create consistency for the children. However, there's no active deception or collaboration between the parents. So, if you're doing that, I don't know how that's beneficial other than the fact that maybe you're not dealing with your ex, maybe your ex is difficult or something like that. So maybe you don't have to, constantly be getting into arguments with them or stuff like that. But at the same time, do you really know what's going on in your child's life? Because if you only have, partial custody or even half custody for that matter, if you're not communicating with the other parent, you're solely relying on the word of the child to know what's going on in the other household. So you're essentially missing out on half their life because you really don't know what's going on. You're also not in the decision making or anything like that when it comes to the custodial parent, and I feel like that just makes things extremely complicated. Again, I understand how it could be beneficial because you're not dealing with the parent if maybe you guys don't get along and stuff, but as far as the child goes, what are you really doing for them by doing that? Maybe they're not growing up in a toxic environment. Sure, I feel like that would be a good thing, but you never know. I guess you'd have to try it to know for sure. The next thing I want to talk about is conflicted co-parenting. Conflicted co-parenting involves constant fighting. It's poor interactions with the other parent and lack of cooperation between the two parents. This style can be particularly harmful to the children. Now, family conflict contributes to poor outcome of, the children, of course, because if you're fighting with your ex and stuff all the time, what's going to happen? Your children are going to see it. Whether you do it in front of them or not, they're still going to feel the hostility. They're still going to, know that, mom and dad don't get along and stuff. So, who does it really benefit at that point? And then it creates a lot of other things. And a lot of the other things that it actually creates is, parental alienation and manipulation. Those are huge things that happen in this. And, it's terrible to think that these things do happen, but they do, and it's terrible. And one of the biggest things that comes from this is actually manipulation. Now, with manipulation, okay, you're sitting there and one of the parents, or both the parents, it doesn't mean that just one person is at fault for this, but you're pitting the child against the other parent, or you're discoloring the other parent. And that's not good. You may feel good because you're getting it off your chest or whatever the case may be, but, you're ultimately making your child feel some sort of way about it. And that's not good. your whole job as a parent is to take care of the child and raise them and, teach them to respect both of you as their parents. And, to sit there and discolor and stuff like that, that's not really an effective thing for anyone. So, to talk a little bit more about the manipulation point of it. So, the co-parent sends messages to you through your children because they don't want to talk to you directly, and you're making the child as a messenger. I mean, that's just a nonsensical way to go about being a co-parent. Who does that help? Nobody. Well, another thing would be like your children report that the other parent speaks ill of you or allows them to be speaking ill of in their presence. The co-parent tells children lies about you or about your family, or about the new partner in your life. They don't respect your boundaries, or they attempt to disrupt your parenting time. Now, I grew up in when my parents split, and my dad never said anything really about my mom. I would ask and stuff like that and say, why'd you guys break up? Like, why isn't she around? Like, because she wasn't really in my life a whole lot. So, you'd always ask questions, but, the answers and stuff like that, he never wanted to give them. Just, your mom wasn't ready to be a mom, whatever, and that was the end of it. Now, if I went to the other side, when I did visit over there, it was just nonstop. She would just constantly belittling him and talking bad about him the entire visitation. And, in the beginning and stuff like that, you kind of just put it out of sight, out of mind. But as time goes on and stuff like that, you really start to, resent that parent for sitting there and just, constantly bringing up these horrible things and stuff about, the person that you live with. And it just creates a problem. So how do you get away from that method of thinking? How do you get away from, someone being toxic to you and stuff in this setting? Well, there's actually something I learned today. There's something called the gray rock method. And basically what that is it's where you deliberately act unresponsive or unengaged so that an abusive person will lose interest in you because, your parents always teach you, ignore a bully, they'll go away. Abusive people thrive on emotions and drama. And when you act indifferent and don't show your emotions, they're probably going to lose interest and stop bothering you, which is the definition that it's called gray rocking. That's something new I learned today. Obviously, ignoring somebody is supposed to make them go away, but that is just the whole definition that they gave with it. So, now when you get into the third form of co-parenting, which is the cooperative one, which is obviously the ideal one, cooperative co-parenting is the highest standard of co-parenting relationships. Parents that work together and they plan to coordinate their child's lives, they also offer support to each other while avoiding any unnecessary conflicts. This approach allows the children to recover better from a divorce or a bad breakup. It promotes a more positive outcome for all the parties involved. So, obviously, it's not always going to be that way. Obviously, if you and your ex split up, you're going to have some sort of resentment in most cases. Maybe one person, was unfaithful or just didn't get along or whatever the case may be. There's always resentment. So if you put your children first rather than putting all that resentment on their shoulders and then obviously, how you portray yourself in front of them, it's obviously going to be a better outcome for the child in the long run. So how do we get there? How do we get those objects for success? Well, a couple things that I jotted down is you can have clear boundaries. You talk about, listen, we're only going to keep it to about our child. It's not going to be about anything personal, nothing like that. It's nothing against you, but rather than invoking an argument, we just have our boundaries. This is what we'll talk about and when we'll talk about it and how we'll talk about it, because communication is key. Have a predetermined schedule. Whether the court sets it up for you or you set it up with your ex, have a schedule and stick to it the best you can. Obviously, emergencies are going to pop up. It happens, it's life, but you want to try to stick to the schedule as well as possible. And it's about being on time too and being responsible. I know in my situations and stuff, nothing frustrated me more is when, my ex would show up late to drop-offs and stuff like that. I just found it to be so disrespectful. Exactly where you got to go, when you got to go. Just be there on time. Because if you're not going to be there on time, it's almost like you don't care about my time. You're taking time away from me because you were allowing me to have less time by showing up late. You have to be also willing to be flexible. If you could be flexible, and understanding, hey, Maybe it's my weekend coming up, but I know that my child is going to be doing something over there that she really wants to do. You know, you're always going to have that child in your life. So if you have to give up a weekend, you know what I mean, for the benefit of the child, you have to be flexible. You can't take everything so personally, because if you sit there and prevent the child from doing what they want to do just because it's solely your weekend, they're only going to resent you for it. Say, oh, I got to be stuck over here at this house, and I could be doing this with my friends and stuff, and it just sets up for failure. So another thing would be to defer to one another. Talk to each other. Have good communication. If something's going on, or you think that something needs to be addressed with your child, the way they're behaving, the way they're talking, the way they're acting in your presence, communicate with each other. It's all about communication. Even if you don't like the person, you know what I mean? You did at one point, you had a child with them. So you just got to kind of suck it up and just do it. And basically, another thing would be, you have to try to agree. Even if it doesn't make sense in the moment, the best thing you could do is at least try to understand where the other person's coming from and try to agree with them, or at least have an open mind, an open line of communication and an open mind. That's what it's all about. You don't want to engage in any sort of manipulative behavior, because if you start engaging in manipulative behavior, you know what I mean, it's only going to make it worse. It's going to be worse for you. It's going to be worse for your child. It's going to be worse for the other parent. It's just going to create conflict. So you don't want to do that. You want to talk to each other about changes. There's going to be a change. So maybe they're joining a sport. Maybe they're, wanting to switch days, or you have an idea for the holiday, or maybe a gift that you want to get. You want to make sure the other parent doesn't get it. Again, it all boils down to communication. You want your children to think that you guys can at least tolerate each other. Obviously, ideally, you want them to think you like each other, but it's not always the case. But you want to be able to know that they tolerate each other. Because if they think that, you just can't stand the other parent, they're not going to want to come to you and talk to you. They're not going to have trust in you, because they're going to think, well, I'm not going to bring up anything to dad because he hates mom, or whatever the case may be. And you don't want that. You want to have that open line of communication. It's the best thing possible. You want to attend events, soccer games, or, cheerleading events, or whatever the case may be. Nothing's going to be worse for the child if they see both of you and they know you don't like each other. Well, do I go up to mom? Do I go up to dad? Like, who do I go to? Like, because I can't have them near each other. It just creates more conflict. It's way worse. And you don't want to do that. And another thing is, recognize each parent has a purpose. Each parent has a goal for the child, and they need a role in the relationship with the child. And you need to put that first. Everyone's going to be burned about, what happened in the last relationship and stuff like that, but ultimately it's about your kids. That's what co-parenting is all about if you're going to do it successfully. Now, there's a lot of challenges that come with co-parenting, at least that I've learned. Again, I'm not a professional or anything. I'm only speaking from experience. And, in my experiences and stuff, some of the big things that come up would be like lasting resentment. That's like a huge thing. And with that, it's a process when you split up. But it's also an emotional experience as well. Most couples share feelings of hurt and resentment after the process is complete, and it can be difficult to let go of these types of feelings. When one parent resents the other one, it can create a rift between the co-parenting and make it impossible to do. Resentful parents are less likely to compromise, and they can struggle and refrain from disparaging their fellow co-parent. Resentment induces toxicity into the co-parenting relationship, and it prevents it from functioning properly. Being a part of this resentful and toxic relationship can have detrimental effects to the children. Again, like I outlined before, your relationship ended for a reason. It sucks. Maybe you didn't agree with it. Maybe you still don't want it to be that way, but regardless, it did. So the best thing you can do is just try to move on from it. And I myself, I always use examples when I'm talking about this stuff, is like when me and my ex split up, as toxic as it was and stuff like that, I didn't want it to come to an end, even though I was the one that left. I still had feelings lingering and stuff like that, and it took me to get angry to finally walk away from it and be done with it, but it stood with me for a long time. It bothered me, and, it wasn't healthy. And it took a while. Again, it was a bad breakup, and, it wasn't the greatest. But I did my best to try to put my hurt feelings aside, although our relationship was extremely toxic. We knew how to push each other's buttons, so it was really hard to set those old things aside and move on from it. But You do the best you can. That's all you can do. And then, like I said, you always just got to put your children's needs first. Your needs can come secondary, and you deal with them in your private life. Always keep your private life and your family life separate. You know what I mean? You don't want your feelings and the emotions you're going through and stuff like that to bleed into what your children are seeing, because it's not right. Now, another big common challenge would be a lack of consistency. So children need consistency. And a co-parenting relationship or a parenting plan that lacks consistency leads to instability. Co-parents need to commit to a plan that includes adhering to court-ordered child custody agreement. If parents share custody with their children, each parent should provide the same level of care for the child. It's all about teamwork. Your children should feel stable and cared for regardless of what home they're living in at the time. If you or your ex didn't have a schedule when you were married, or you're not able to continue the parenting in the same way, you need to come up with something else. Parenting in separate households requires organization and planning. It always does. Children can fall through the cracks when both parents don't take it seriously. If you're both caught up in your own emotions and you're not paying attention to the child, who suffers? Everyone, but especially the child. You suffer because you're sitting there and you're dealing with your own stuff, and your significant or your ex is dealing with their own stuff, and the children aren't being taken care of. They're not being watched. They're not having their emotional needs met. And what are they going to do? They're inevitably going to sit there and think there's something wrong with them. They're going to start blaming themselves and start saying that, this must be my fault, or, I don't feel comfortable talking to mommy or daddy or whoever the case may be, because they're going to get upset. They don't want to hear mommy's name or daddy's name, whatever the case may be. You don't want it. You just don't want to do that to them. It's not their fault that you guys split up. It's ultimately your guys' fault. Something went wrong, and it didn't work out. Maybe we weren't right for each other from the start, but it ended. It's done. You just got to move on. Another thing that would be a common challenge would be competitive parenting. I think this is the one that, I feel like, at least in my situation, stressed me out the worst. And basically what it is, for like a basic definition, parents who try to win their child's affection and approval by buying them gifts or not enforcing rules, or, ruining their co-parents' relationship by introducing inconsistency. Trying to apologize for your divorce by bribing your child may seem acceptable, but it leads to problems with your co-parenting relationship with your significant other. You won't be able to maintain the behavior for long term, which will confuse and frustrate your child. It also puts your child's relationship with the other parent in jeopardy. It's not a pissing contest. And I feel like guilt is a huge thing that does that in a lot of these situations. You feel bad about whatever transgressions happen in that relationship. So you think like, well, every time my kid comes over, we got to be going to Six Flags. We got to be going here. We got to be doing this. I got to buy him gifts every time. They need a brand new iPhone or the brand new iPad, like whatever the case may be. You're just buying all these gifts just like to give to them to try to make them love you. They're your children. They're going to love you regardless. You know what I mean? That's kind of what they do. You don't need to ram gifts down their throat or be like, oh, I bet you don't get this treatment over at your father's house, do you? I bet you he doesn't let you stay up till late. Or, when they're at your house, you're sitting there like, oh, well, I bet you mom doesn't let you watch these scary movies or anything like that. Like, it's not a pissing contest. You should be promoting the other parent. Unless there's a serious need where, that parent shouldn't be a parent, which, there's other options you can go to. You can go to, like here in New Jersey, they call them DYFS. You could go to the court. You could seek child counselors, whatever the case may be, but there's always going to be an avenue to do that rather than trying to bribe your children for affection. It's not going to work. In my situation, like when I would go to my mom's house, the little times I did visit her, she would buy like video games and stuff like that. And at first it was fun, it was cool that she was like my mom and we would play games together and stuff like that. And, I thought it was awesome, but after a while, all the other negative stuff that went along with it outweighed all of that stuff. And it wound up plaguing those good memories to the point where I only had bad ones. So, bribery is not always going to work. It's not. And, another big challenge that comes up in this situation is step-parents and new partners. Because there's no right or wrong way to do it. Obviously, there's some methods that are better than others, but there's really no right or wrong way to introduce somebody new. Because eventually you're going to move on with your life. Eventually you might meet somebody else, and you're going to want them to be around your children and stuff like that. So how do you go about introducing them? Well, when you have step-parents and stuff, your child has two biological parents, and additional parents can be initially confusing. especially for young children. While it's normal to move on with your life, the addition of step parents into a child's life can be met with hostility and resentment. It will take time for your child to become more comfortable with these new relationships. When you're ready to introduce a new partner to your children or remarry, it's important to work with the co-parent to make the process less stressful on your children. You should also involve the co-parent because they can know how to respect their position as your child's parent. I always had an issue with this personally, and the issue with it is that, when we split up and stuff like that, there was maybe a 2-week benchmark before the next guy came in. And me personally, I have been single since that breakup by choice. And, it's not something that I wanted. I never wanted to saddle my daughter with a stepmom. I never imagined it in my head. I didn't like it growing up, so I didn't want to, do that to her. So I never really thought about that. I put my own needs with that and stuff aside because I was more focused on, trying to get custody of her, and then also at the same time, figure my own stuff out, figure out why I was acting the way I was acting, because I was, just as much as fault as her mom was. I didn't think that in the beginning, but, we both had our issues and we were both at fault for a lot of different things. And it took a while to open up and really dive into those things and realize that nobody was a saint remotely close. It failed for a lot of reasons on both parts. But, when the new partner came in, it bothered me because it was first of all, it was secretive. There was no discussion about it. It was I was being told from outside sources that there was another person in there. And there was a lot of other things that I'm not going to dive into that were going on that bothered me with that situation because I just thought it was inappropriate. But, how do you properly introduce that person? So, some key things that you could think about would be, how long do you wait before you introduce that person? Well, basically the rule of thumb, like what they say when you talk to counselors and stuff, that it's important to confirm that you've made it past the honeymoon stage. If this person's gonna last, that you could see a future together with them. Why introduce them to your children if you don't see a future with them? It wouldn't make sense. It's just going to further confuse your children. If you date them for a while and stuff like that, and you think they're going to be a good fit and a positive influence on your children, then yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? You introduce them as a friend, and then, at that point, you kind of work on it. And most experts will tell you, I'm not an expert myself, but most people will tell you to wait at least, at a bare minimum, 6 months. Because then the person's going to stick around. It's not just a one-night thing. It's not a fling, anything like that. They're actually in your life actively. You've been seeing them for quite a while. Meeting your kids is a big thing. You want to wait until it's a significant relationship. On top of that, you want to talk to, the person you're seeing, to let them know how significant it is that you're allowing them to meet your children. It's a big deal. Obviously, these are your children. You don't want to feel pressured. You don't want that person saying, hey, how come I haven't met your kids yet? Or anything like that. You introduce them to your children when it feels right to you. Don't be pressured. Understand that your partner can wait if they want to. And let them know, hey, if I really mean this much to you, just wait until I'm ready. Let me get all my ducks in a row, so that way it helps them in the long run. That's really what you want to make sure, because you're looking out for your kids first. So, basically, let them ask questions. If they want to ask questions to get to know, the children or anything about them, maybe their likes, stuff like that, before you let them introduce, it shows that they're caring. It shows that they want to know. Absolutely, do that. And when you talk to your kids, let them know when they meet the person what this person means to you. They're not replacing mommy or daddy. They're just another person. They're like a bonus, like a friend. And that's how you want to introduce it. That's the best way to go about it, But you have to also give your kids equal attention. You can't just be well, this person's coming over, so you go play in your room and we're going to be in our room or anything like that. Because then your kid's going to feel ostracized every time they're in your presence because you'd rather focus on your significant other than show them attention. When the reality is when they're visiting with you, that is where 100% of your attention should be. Now, if you can incorporate that other person into that attention as well and make it the most positive for the child, then that's amazing. Obviously, that's what you want to do. It's the best thing possible. Another big thing is try to hold off on the PDA. Your kids don't need to see that. Obviously, you know what I mean, after a while and stuff like that, they're going to see you guys kiss or hold hands or whatever, cuddle on the couch. But try your best not to do that, especially if the split up is still fresh, because they're confused. They don't know what's going on. Why aren't mommy and dad living together? Or daddy and daddy, or mommy and mommy, or whatever the case may be. Why aren't they living together anymore? They're confused. So when you take your own agenda, when you move on and put it in front of their face, it's only going to confuse them more. You know, I had a big problem where, whether it's true or not, my 2-year-old just decided to start randomly calling another man dad. I'm pretty sure that was placed there. I'm more than certain that was placed there. And I was told it was placed there. I don't think children just randomly come up with this idea at that age to start calling another man dad. That's another manipulation and spiteful thing. But again, should I have been involved? You want to get the other person involved. That's what you want to do. You're co-parenting. If you want to successfully co-parent together, you need to both be involved. Hey, I met this person. I would like to introduce them to so-and-so. This is how I'm going to do it. You're being honest. You're being open about it. You can be more receptive when you're open rather than when you're deceptive and closed. Then it's just going to create hostile stuff. Because then maybe if you got to find out second party because your kid comes back and says, oh, mommy's got a new boyfriend or daddy's got a new girlfriend, then you're like, what are we doing here? Why? Why is this happening? And it just creates a lot of unnecessary problems. And nobody needs that. There's no need for it whatsoever. Now, what do we got? All right. But all in all, everything really boils down to, what's best for the children. What really is the thing that's going to well-round them the most? I mean, everybody has issues. Everybody has problems. Everybody goes through heartache. It's normal. But your main focus should always be on the children. It's putting their needs first. Again, not every time, every situation, every dealing with a co-parent and stuff like that is going to go as planned. But, I mean, hey,
Hello.
hey,
I
you're a
made
little
it.
late. I've been going for an hour already.
That's okay. I was on the phone.
No, it's all good. So, yeah, we we pretty much rolled through almost everything. you know, to recap and stuff like that, I talked about the differences between different co-parenting styles and stuff like that. Gave examples about how, you got to put the children first and how you need to put your own needs and stuff aside because it's tough. It is, especially if the breakup is really bad. You know what I mean? There's going to be so many opportunities where you find yourself just like biting your tongue, like, don't feed into it, don't feed into it. But, it happens. And if you're dealing with somebody that's extremely difficult when it comes to the co-parenting, it's going to make it 10 times harder. And it really, really makes it a challenge. And, that's not what it's about. It's not about what's good for you. It's what's good about your children. I can speak that, being a father is a thankless job. You do what you can whenever you can to make sure that they're taken care of because you're not looking for any sort of appreciation because of it. You're doing it because you created them. That's your job. You don't want to be a deadbeat parent. Why would you do that? You made them. I don't know if you want to jump on, Stormy, and talk about, some co-parenting stuff.
Um, yeah, I guess experienced the other side of it to where um, my daughter's father is away a lot, working um, out of state, overseas, in the Gulf. So I'm pretty much not really a co-parent per se because I'm the one that's taking care of her 24/7, 365. Um, he gets to visit a couple of times here and there, but that's pretty much it on like his part of being a co-parent. So it's tough. It's tough on me, but if he could see her a lot more, I mean, that's definitely something that, I would not be opposed to, or I would not, you know, try to not let him see her. If he wants to see her, he can see her as much as he wants. So I haven't really had to deal with the hard part of being a co-parent.
Gotcha. And again, there's so many different perspectives with it. You know what I mean? Like it's all about, again, just doing the best you can to make the transition as easy as possible. It's not about out parenting the other person. It's not about anything like that. It's just about everybody being happy and everybody doing the right thing. It's really what it boils down to. Now, since we went through all that stuff, Stormy and I started mapping out how we were going to go forward with everything that we were doing, you know, as far as our live stream schedules and stuff like that. So we came up with a little bit of a list today of things to look forward to. Now, again, if this is your first time joining me here or joining us here, you know, I'm Nick Belisi. I'm the author of Souls of Paradise and Paradise Reborn. On our Thursday night live streams, what we do is we go through the Souls of Paradise, my first book, for Easter eggs and, you know, things that have to do with the book where I came up with the ideas and all that stuff. And last Thursday, you want me to show the books again? Okay, I can show the books again. Okay. So, last week we did chapters 11, 12, and 13. This Thursday, we're going to be doing chapters 14, 15, and 16. Now, when we get into those, we're going to be nearing the end because there's only 21 chapters in the first book. Now, once we finish those chapters this week, next Tuesday, something that we talked about we were going to be doing for a while now, is Stormy is going to be doing her autism talk. So I know I'm personally excited about that, to learn more about it. And, you know, here, show the one we're on the cover. Hang on a second. Maybe we can get up. I didn't have this ready. Give me 1 second. All right. All right. We're back. There you go. Now, Tuesday's live chat is going to be about autism. Like I said, I'm very excited to hear about that. I know Stormy's been working excited to hear all about it and learn some new things myself with it. So Stormy is basically going to be taking control of that one, and we'll get that going. Next Thursday, we're going to be doing chapters 17, 18, and the following Tuesday, online dating and how toxic that entire world is. Then that following Thursday is chapters 20, 21, and a complete review before we go into the book that I was just showing, which I have multiple covers for, you know, depending on which is your preference. Initially, it was the one with my daughter, which is still is for the soft cover, and then I went with this one as well for the hardcover. So I have both those covers available. Now, the following Tuesday after that, so this will put us to 3 more Tuesdays out, will be toxic relationships in general. A lot of people can speak to that. Now, I always say on the live streams and stuff like that, you know, if you guys ever want to jump on and join us to talk about some of these things, I think I may have my roommate jump on for one of them. He said he wanted to join us for one of them, so that's someone that we'll be getting. And again, all you have to do is send us a message or something like that, whether it be me or Stormy, and you're more than welcome to join it. I'm going to post the videos up with the schedule as far as what to look forward to in the coming weeks, so you guys can follow along with it, set your alarms, whatever the case may be. Should you miss what we're doing, you can always go on our YouTube, the Paradise Collection, and watch the replays there. I always post them within like a day or so. Or you can click on my TikTok profile and then click on the Facebook link from there. You can also follow us on Facebook too, where I post everything that you're seeing on TikTok is also communicated to Facebook if that's your preferred method of getting information. Now, we wanted to add in another video. I may do another video tomorrow. It depends on my schedule. Tomorrow's a little hectic, but I may do another one tomorrow, so we'll just see how that goes. So if that's the case, you know what I mean? Stay tuned and I will let you guys know. I've been getting a lot of feedback. On one of my videos, I talked about, or I gave a tour of my writing room, and a lot of people have liked it. I think it was like over like 1,600 people like watched the video and like commented on it and stuff like that. And you know, I was messaging some of them and I was saying like, yeah, you know, I'll do a more in-depth look at my writing room and stuff. So That's going to be the next video that I post. I'm going to try to do it tomorrow. If I can't, I may do it again on Thursday before our book reading, or Friday, depending on my schedule with that as well. It's all about availability, but I will do one, and then I'll go into a detail about how it all came to be and all that stuff. But, stay tuned with our upcoming schedule and, follow along with us for more information. And if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, even if you don't want to join yourself, maybe you just want to watch, shoot me the idea. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Like, I'm open for suggestions. I'm always into learning new things and stuff, and always looking forward to more things to talk about. So if you have something you want to hear, let's dive into it. Let's do it. Another thing we were going to talk about is I had a pretty adventurous life most of my life. I got a lot of stories that came along with that. So one of the other things we were going to be doing, I was talking to my buddies at work, and they wanted me to start doing it, is we're going to be doing stories from the mailroom. Now, the reason why I call it the mailroom is because I built, a man cave in my basement. And since I've worked for the post office for the last 10 years, and I've been around it because my family's been in it since before I was born, I've paid homage to it because, most of the people that come over and stuff are from work. So we call it the mailroom, so they feel right at home. So I was going to be telling stories once a week about things from my past, like Navy stories, or, things that have just happened in life growing up and stuff like that. Not necessarily things that happened in the mailroom itself, but, stories like that. Because a lot of people get a kick out of it from the crazy things I've done. So that's going to be another thing that we talk about. I'll try to post a video once a week with a new story, stuff like that. We'll see how it does. With that being said, Stormy, did you have anything else you wanted to add in before we jumped off?
Nope, that was it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys who've joined tonight and stuck with me for another Tuesday night healing. Like I said, next Tuesday night's healing will be about autism. So that's a really good one to jump on and watch. We're going to be a lot of promoting about that and stuff. And, it'd be great for you guys to go on because it is something that is, very well respected in our world. And I think severely overlooked. And there's a lot of cases of it and stuff. And I think a lot of people are in the dark about what it actually is. And I think it'd be great for everybody to get some knowledge on that. So we'll do it again at the same time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, next Tuesday for that healing. And like I said, this Thursday, if you want to dive into the book with us, you could always jump on. We're, again, doing the Souls of Paradise. If you haven't got the book, you could always go on Amazon. Both books are on there for 99 cents for the Kindle versions, a little bit more for the hardcover and softcover. That's just because of printing costs. If you want to buy the book and read along with us, more than welcome to do so. And I think it's pretty cool, to give you guys the information about how I came up with these things. I got all these characters behind me, and as I go on, I'll start pointing them out so you understand who everybody is and can put a face to the name in the book and stuff. And that's where we'll be. So I hope you guys all have a good night tonight, and I will see you on either tomorrow or Thursday.